I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try to be the best. I get y'all saying best player in the world. That's great. It looks great. But I want to be the best person. I want to be the
Vegas Aces, who are expected to be better than the Fever, you know. Better than the Fever. Just got beaten by 33 points. Yes, by 33 points to a Phoenix Mercury team whose point guard was playing their first ever WNBA minutes and had like 18 first half points.
What if the biggest embarrassment of opening night had nothing to do with talent and everything to do with leadership falling apart in real time? A team built around Aya Wilson walked into the season with championship expectations, then got completely destroyed by 33 points in front of the entire basketball world. But fans are not just furious about the scoreboard. They're furious about what happened after the game. The body language looked disconnected, the answers sounded empty, and now social media is exploding with one brutal question. Who is actually taking responsibility for this collapse before the season spirals out of control?
Days ago, I mean, the ring has already been won, you know? Like, we've already won it. So this was just a tangible, like, oh, okay, yes, we did it. That's why I personally don't like them, because I'm like, in my mind, I've already had the ring. I've had the ring since October. Like, let's just get on with it. But no, it's a blessing. It's a moment that I'm not going to shy too away from. I'm going to enjoy it. But yeah, the hand is getting heavy, but the crown is getting heavier, and we got to continue to make sure that it doesn't fall off of our heads, and I'm excited just to continue to have a chance like we got tomorrow to try it all over again.
Some seasons do not wait for drama to build slowly. Sometimes chaos kicks the door down on opening night and announces itself immediately. The WNBA just delivered one of those moments. Expectations were sky high, narratives were already heating up, and within minutes fans were watching confusion, frustration, and total dysfunction unfold in real time. Now every mistake feels bigger, every reaction feels louder, and suddenly the league is entering the season with controversy already stealing the spotlight before teams have even settled into their rhythm.
This game was interesting to the point that we know that they are getting their rings during this game, and this is a rematch, basically a championship rematch game of what happened in the last season, right? So the Phoenix, they came out with some oomph. They came out with some chutzpah. They came out with insert another fucking word for. They got that dogs. They were like, I'm getting my lick back. And what did they do? They blew them out the water. It was 99-66. Insane. One of the things I think that was working against the Aces is AT. I mean, Alyssa Thomas, she was accurate as fuck today.
Nobody expected the new WNBA season to feel this dramatic before teams had even settled into their rotations. But opening night already looked like the beginning of a full-blown basketball documentary. Franchises that were supposed to establish dominance walked straight into pressure, confusion, and questions nobody thought would arrive this early. Suddenly championship expectations are colliding with ugly performances, frustrated reactions, and fan bases already panicking after just one night. And the craziest part? It feels like the tension around the league is only getting started.
Is there any excuse on how the Aces lost yesterday? Like, is there any excuse? Like, can someone find me any excuse on how they lost yesterday? Because I'm trying to find one. I understand it was ring day. They got their rings. It's the first game of the season. I don't want to hear that. Listen, man, you're the defending champions. And that's how y'all lay an egg on the first game of the season? Get beat by 30? On ring day in Vegas. Like, that's how y'all show up?
What makes this early season chaos feel impossible to ignore is how fast two of the WNBA's biggest storylines started mirroring each other at the exact same time. The Indiana Fever were already under pressure after a rough opening loss sparked questions about chemistry, expectations, and whether the hype had become too overwhelming too quickly. Then just as fans were still debating that situation, the Las Vegas Aces stepped onto the court and delivered an even bigger shock that instantly threw the entire league into panic mode. Now both franchises are sitting at the center of non-stop online debate, and suddenly opening week feels less like the start of a season and more like the beginning of complete chaos.
The Fever miss out on another golden opportunity to improve the team. Miss out on another golden opportunity, and this just goes to show this front office is incompetent. It's very clear that the head coach is incompetent. She don't know what she's doing. She's in over her head when it comes to coaching Caitlin Clark. Yesterday was embarrassing. It was a debacle. We were the laughing stock of the day. Yeah, the Aces got beat by damn near 40 points, and the Indiana Fever still were the laughing stock of the day. Ridiculous, man. We got to get into what happened today.
The Indiana Fever became one of the first major storylines of the new season after their opening matchup against the Dallas Wings exposed just how dangerous expectations can become when a team enters the year surrounded by non-stop hype. Fans expected control, confidence, and immediate dominance, but instead they watched mistakes pile up, momentum disappear, and pressure start creeping into every conversation almost instantly. Within hours, debates exploded across social media about execution, leadership, chemistry, and whether the spotlight around the franchise had already become heavier than expected. But just when it felt like the Fever were carrying the biggest embarrassment of opening week, the Las Vegas Aces stepped onto the court and completely changed the tone of the entire league. A franchise built around championship standards and led by superstar Aya Wilson was not simply defeated. They were overwhelmed in a way almost nobody predicted. The most shocking part was how quickly the game slipped away as new faces and unexpected breakout performances started tearing through the Aces' defensive structure possession after possession. And then came the moment that truly sent fans into disbelief. A guard playing her first real meaningful WNBA minutes suddenly looked fearless against one of the league's biggest powerhouses. From the opening quarter, she attacked aggressively, made confident decisions under pressure, and played with the kind of composure veterans usually spend years trying to develop. Every basket increased the tension, every possession exposed more cracks in the Aces' defense, and by the second half the entire game felt less like an upset and more like the beginning of a full-blown crisis nobody saw coming.
He had 19, 4 assists, 2 steals in 21 minutes. They were up 30 at halftime. Kiana Williams had 11. Annalie Maley played 6 minutes. She joined the team like yesterday. Kiara Linson's played 14. And if you look, Aja Wilson, by the way, again, Aja Wilson with 19 points. So player of the game, obviously, for the whole game, minus 22. 19 points, minus 22. Therefore, she, in fact, was like... she's top currently of the MVP race because, you know, she only scored 11 points less than Brianna Stewart did yesterday, or 12 points less than Brianna Stewart, and, you know, age attacks doesn't make up for that.
By halftime, the Phoenix Mercury were no longer just leading the game. They were completely controlling it. The scoreboard already showed a gap so wide that fans started questioning how two teams expected to compete at a similar championship level could look so far apart this early in the season. Every time the Las Vegas Aces tried to slow the tempo, reset possession, or regain momentum, the game somehow slipped even further away from them. Meanwhile, the Mercury kept throwing fresh contributors into the action, including Kiana Williams and multiple role players who suddenly looked fearless against one of the league's biggest super teams. But the real explosion happened after the final buzzer. Fans can accept bad nights. They can accept missed shots, ugly stretches, and even shocking blowouts early in a season. What they struggle to accept is uncertainty around leadership after a collapse that massive. Because when a franchise is built around a superstar like Aya Wilson, expectations go beyond scoring numbers or highlight plays. People expect visible ownership, emotional accountability, and a response that immediately calms the chaos before it spreads. Instead, the post-game reaction seemed to create even more confusion. Rather than shutting down the criticism, the conversations afterward opened the door to bigger questions about leadership structure, locker room chemistry, and whether this loss was just an ugly opening night stumble or the first real sign that something deeper may already be wrong with the Aces. Within minutes, social media turned the defeat into a full-scale debate, and suddenly one bad game started feeling like a potential warning sign for an entire season.
Aja Wilson is a star. Like, I know Aja is the star. Like, don't get me wrong. But Chelsea Gray is the leader of the Aces. Like, she's the leader. Only had 4 points yesterday. 4 points, obviously that's not going to get it done. Like, that's just not. Jewel Lloyd, nowhere to be found. 12, yeah, but she was 5 of 15 from the field. Like, 5 of 15, like, that's inefficient. The only person that came off the bench that produced yesterday obviously was Chennedy Carter.
To understand why this loss exploded into such a massive storyline, you have to understand that the Las Vegas Aces are not treated like an ordinary team. This is a franchise associated with championships, deep playoff runs, superstar expectations, and a reputation for looking almost untouchable when everything is clicking. Fans are used to seeing the Aces control games, dictate tempo, and overwhelm opponents with confidence. That is exactly why this collapse shocked people so quickly. Because it was not just a bad shooting night. The Phoenix Mercury did not simply survive against the Aces. They imposed their style of basketball from the opening minutes and never let go of control. Fast transitions turned into easy scoring opportunities, aggressive spacing kept the defense scrambling, and every efficient scoring run added more pressure onto a roster that looked increasingly uncomfortable as the game progressed. The Aces kept searching for momentum, but the Mercury continuously answered before any rhythm could fully develop. What made the performance even more dangerous was the balance behind it. Instead of relying on one superstar carrying the offense, the Mercury attacked in waves. Multiple players stepped into meaningful minutes, contributed confidently, and kept the energy flowing possession after possession. That balance created a nightmare defensively because the Aces could never fully focus on shutting down a single player. Every adjustment seemed to open another problem somewhere else on the floor. And by the second half it genuinely looked like the Mercury were dictating every important moment of the game while the Aces struggled to keep pace mentally and physically.
The Aces played the Mercury. They got thumped. They lost about 30 points to defending champs. So, Agent Wilson, they got that bling. That was some big ass rings they had, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, the Phoenix Mercury came out there and smacked their ass up about 33 points and shit. So
I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of happy the WNBA season does start.
Yeah. Hey, look, I watched about 2 or 3 games a day.
In contrast, the Las Vegas Aces looked increasingly disjointed as the game wore on, especially when rotations shifted and defensive assignments started to stretch under sustained pressure. That breakdown wasn't just about missed coverage or fatigue. It created openings that the Phoenix Mercury repeatedly exploited to build rhythm, confidence, and ultimately a lead that kept growing into something the Aces could never fully recover from. At the center of everything, Aya Wilson remains the structural anchor of the Aces offense, the player everything is designed around when the system is functioning properly. But what made this moment so heavily discussed wasn't just the result, it was the wider interpretation around it. Even though players like Caitlin Clark were not directly involved in this matchup, her rising influence in league conversations often becomes part of the broader media lens that fans use to frame expectations, pressure, and narrative comparisons across teams and performances. Still, beneath all the noise, the reality is more grounded than the discourse suggests. Both the Indiana Fever and the Aces are still in early season adjustment phases where chemistry, timing, and tactical sharpness naturally take time to stabilize. That process is normal in professional basketball, even for elite teams. The real difference is perception. The Aces are not judged like a developing roster, they are judged like a finished product. And players like Aya Wilson are not evaluated like prospects, they are evaluated like standards of excellence. That gap between expectation and reality is exactly what turns an early season loss into a league-wide talking point.
I'd have a hard time. We saw it in this one now, really showing against a competent team, the Mercury, that without a Jaya, they are not good. They barely beat the Wings, and it was kind of a question mark, but I thought, hey, maybe they could come back, and they kind of started off good, and then tied the first quarter, and then the second quarter started, the Mercury got a decent lead, held it, and they just couldn't break 3. And it honestly just came because, again, Kelly Strokes, right? I don't remember. Kaya, 14 rebounds, no points.
Historically, the Las Vegas Aces have built a reputation for responding quickly after poor performances, often tightening rotations, correcting mistakes, and returning with a sharper, more controlled identity in their next outings. That consistency is exactly why many analysts are cautious about turning a single opening night result into a long-term judgment. Elite teams are rarely defined by one game, they are defined by how they adjust once the early noise settles. At the same time, opening week performances in the WNBA can still expose early structural issues that might otherwise stay hidden deeper into the season. When defensive breakdowns appear alongside offensive inconsistency, especially in high-pressure environments, it can highlight areas that require immediate adjustment before they develop into recurring problems. For the Phoenix Mercury, however, this matchup was the opposite experience. Everything clicked at once. Individual breakout moments aligned with strong bench production and sustained energy across rotations, allowing them to control the game in a way that felt both complete and intentional. For now, the broader takeaway from opening week is less about one result and more about what it signals across the league. Early games have already challenged assumptions about dominance, stability, and predictability, reminding everyone that no contender is fully insulated from disruption. And as the conversation continues to build across fan bases and media narratives, one question sits at the center of it all: whether this wave of early chaos is just temporary turbulence, or the first sign that this season is going to be far less predictable than anyone expected.
NBA playoffs. All right, we got to give the ladies some love, right? And right now, we got the Aces versus the Mercury. The Aces are basically 2 up on the Mercury right now. The first game they won 89-86, and the second game the Aces won as well, 91-78. That second game was pretty much a little bit of an ass whooping. But what you think about this game, Buck?
I think the series is over. The Aces got too much fire wise. Asia Wilson, she's unstoppable. What she gonna do? What she gonna do?
That question becomes even more urgent when you realize how fast narratives can flip in a league where every possession is magnified and every mistake gets amplified into a storyline. In the WNBA, reputations are never just built on what happened last season. They are constantly rewritten by what happens right now, under pressure, in real time. And that is exactly why the Las Vegas Aces suddenly find themselves under a different kind of spotlight, where their response to adversity matters more than their past dominance. Because this is not a franchise unfamiliar with pressure. If anything, the Aces have lived at the center of it. And Aya Wilson has built her entire identity around being the stabilizing force when everything around her starts to wobble. That expectation doesn't disappear in a single game, it intensifies it. Now every rotation, every adjustment, every stretch of inconsistency is being analyzed through the lens of whether the system is fully syncing with the level of talent on the floor. What made the matchup against the Phoenix Mercury so impactful wasn't just the result, it was how it unfolded. The Mercury didn't win off one explosive run or a short burst of momentum. They controlled the game through structure. Pace was deliberate. Defensive rotations were sharp. And every stop immediately turned into pressure on the other end, as if each possession was part of a larger, connected system rather than isolated moments. That consistency is what separated the game. Every possession carried intent. Every transition had purpose. And once the lead started growing, it didn't just become a scoreboard issue, it became psychological. The Aces weren't just chasing points anymore, they were chasing structure, rhythm, and stability in a game that was steadily slipping into control they could no longer dictate. When urgency replaces structure, even elite teams can start to look reactive instead of composed. And that is where the conversation now sits, between reputation and reality, expectation and execution, and whether this early season shock is just a correction moment, or the first real signal that the balance of power might already be shifting in ways nobody fully anticipated.